every month when I write the horoscopes, I encounter the same problem, which is that I have so much to say about the asteroids and really not enough time and space to write it all down. Because otherwise you'd end up with a horoscope that was ridiculously long and I would end up having my fingers worn to the bone. So instead I'm going to shift that all over into a video for subscribers. But this month I'm just going to do a very fast rundown for the second half of August of what the asteroids are doing. By the asteroids, I'm only dealing with the 4 goddess asteroids because, again, unwieldy. We can just focus on those. They're incredibly useful. They give you just pinpoint insight sometimes into what's really going on. And also they're like friends and advisors. Working with the asteroids, helpful. Okay, so this month, Juno, which is just very briefly, is the asteroid of contracts, right? Juno is in Leo, and she'll be leaving on the 24th of August, and then she will go into Virgo, right? So Leos and Virgos, you're thinking about your contracts. She does a really interesting thing on the 19th of August, which is she makes a conjunction with Venus in Leo. This is about social contracts, marriage, if you will, but also about the social contracts we make in a wider way with the personal and the political, okay? Really important for Aquarians to be thinking about their personal relationships and their personal contracts. Really important for Leos to be thinking about their contracts, the contracts people make with you, yeah? Especially around this time. Very important also, actually, for Taurus and Scorpio. Again, this is about the family and about the political. So for Scorpio, for example, it's about your social contract, perhaps with the wider world. So you might want to think about this, which is that politics are a social contract between the people of the past, the people of the present, and the people of the future. What does that mean to you? I think that's Burke. Is that Burke, David? Yeah, it's Burke. Edmund Burke, British philosopher, English philosopher. When he was talking about what is the social contract, what's the contract that politicians make. And that's useful for all of us to be thinking about our social contracts at the end of August and what these mean, because this will fall for all of us in different parts of our somewhere in your chart. This is going to be an issue. So Juno's moving fairly normally this year. So she's going to be moving from one sign to the next without going retrograde and staying a long time in a sign. However, all the other ones have spent a long time, that means Vesta, Pallas, and Ceres, have spent a long time in various signs this year. So we move on to Vesta, who's been in Taurus since the 9th of January. Now, Vesta is the domestic goddess. In a way, of course, you know that she was the most one of the most important goddesses in Rome because everybody had a hearth. She's the goddess of the hearth, and she's in Taurus. This is about our relationship with Mother Earth, with the Earth. For Taurians, this is really important because you're thinking about what your legacy is going to be, what you've inherited, what you want to pass on, and what your sacred flame is inside you, the living spirit, right? So that's really important for Taurus, and is actually really important for Scorpios because there's something about your relationships that has been being reconfigured slightly with this Vesta going back and forth in Taurus, spending such a long time with an emphasis on your relationships. But I actually also think that for Leos, this is about, for Leos and Aquarians. For Aquarians, it's about the family, yeah? And the really your inheritance and what kind of family you create, you want to make. And if you think of yourself gathering around the hearth, what that means or what that doesn't mean. You might not want to make a family of people. It might be a family of dogs and cats. I don't know. And for Leos, this is about your influence, I suppose, in the world and what kind of influence you want to leave behind. And also just about career, right? So what does that mean in your career? I mean, literally for some Leos, it may be that you have a career as a, cookery writer, and that's going really well, or you're starting one, or you're changing direction slightly. The third asteroid that I want to talk about is Pallas, the goddess of wisdom. I've done a huge video thing on it, which you can look up on YouTube. I've done, there's several videos on Pallas in which are much more detailed than this. But really, what you need to know is that she has been in Libra from from the beginning of this year, and she'll be here until the 26th of August, and then she changes signs. So she's spent a long time in the sign of, politics and peace, of negotiations and talk. And Pallas is very associated with negotiations. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when she leaves Libra, because it may be like the talking is over. And for you personally, Librans, you may have found yourself in the role of advisor a lot this year. And your opposite sign, Aries, you should be looking for good advice. It's still a good year. It has been a good year for hiring the right people to help you out, the right lawyer, the right therapist, the right astrologer, to help you out, to give you advice and to give you more wisdom, greater wisdom. And it's interesting because I think for Aries in particular, Pallas can be very useful if you can plug into that Pallas, because sometimes you need the wisdom. The final asteroid I want to talk to you about is Ceres, who may be the most important asteroid. She's certainly the biggest anyway, and she is the same as the goddess Demeter. Ceres is the goddess of the harvest, of agriculture, of fertility, of the relationship between human beings and the earth. In other words, that's why she's agriculture, right? So I think that we can see Ceres has been in the same sign as Jupiter, which expands for most of the year. And I think that our awareness of the problems with the relationship between human beings and the earth has expanded a lot in 2019. Now this month, she's still in Sagittarius, and I think that, the useful things for you to know personally are that for Sagittarians, this makes you very fertile, and you should be gardening, you should have pets, you should be thinking about having a baby or grandchildren. And I think the same is actually true for Geminis. It's about abundance, and it's doubly abundant with Jupiter there. For Leos, again, it's about children, fertility, romance. And if you've got this at the top of your chart, Ceres at the top of your chart, which is for Pisceans, this is definitely a month and a year so far. It's been about understanding that you are maybe more of a mother than you thought. Yeah, so this is not just being a mother to your own children if you have them, but it's about being mother in a wider sense. Ceres is, I have found, associated with popes. I've written an article on it somewhere on my website. You'll find one about Ceres and popes, and it's amazing when you start looking at their charts. Indeed, you could predict the next pope next time by seeing whether Ceres is on an angle in his chart. So there's an association between the marriage of heaven and earth that Ceres has something to do with in the chart. And that's a useful thing to think about for Sagittarians particularly, because it's in your sign. It's like, what are you doing with that? But also for the other fire signs. So I hope that gives you a little bit more juice for the month ahead, a little bit, just some extra, it's like adding not salt and pepper, but really interesting spice mix.